Good night, everyone. Welcome back to your favorite live sports show, none other than hashtag this just in. It is indeed a special NBA Finals edition. And for a special loaded show, I have to bring a special loaded cast. By now, all of you have to know, if you're a fan of this show, you must know Dwayne Marcus of the GOAT Talk with Marcus. What's up, my brother?
Uh, Aside from the fact that you can't believe that I'm 6'3", which has been apparently the talk of the town for the past week, I'm doing good. Still the busiest man in the business. I've got a show up every day this week again, but outside of that, I'm doing great, man.
And it has been too long, way too long. Calvin Domingo, otherwise known as Steezy A. Smith, joins us for after 2 month hiatus. Welcome back.
Justin, Neil, Dwayne, man. Woo, how nostalgic. I know it's only been a couple of months, but it just feels like it's been forever since I've been on a show with you guys. And so it's always fun hopping on, and thanks for having me on.
Well, who didn't make it back this time, though, guys, with the Boston Celtics after Game 2? Yes, they did indeed fall into another third quarter hole, this time a 35-14 Golden State run. But unlike Game 1, there was no rally, and it fell, I want to say, 107-88 for the Golden State Warriors to tie this series at 1 apiece going into Game 3 in Boston. So sorry, Dwayne, but we have not had Steezy on for a minute. We have to start with Steezy, of course. How did Golden State win this game?
Man, I want to start off by giving credit to Gary Payton II. I mean, I know if you look at the box score, you only see 7 points and a couple of rebounds and whatnot, but I felt like in his 25 minutes of on-the-court playing time, I thought his impact was significant. I mean, you look at energy, you look at hustle plays, the offensive rebounds, the putbacks, the defensive tenacity, the energy. It's so infectious. It's so contagious. In Game 1, I know he was ready to go. He didn't end up playing, and so I thought that Golden State was missing an element defensively. Honestly, I think there's a case to be made that he's Golden State's best perimeter defender, with or without Andrew Wiggins, and so I think with what he was able to do, hats off to him. I mean, he is an absolute essential piece to what the Warriors want to do, both offensively and defensively. He's making all the dirty plays. He's doing all the plays. He's doing everything that, the rest of the guys aren't really capable of doing. And so hats off to him. I thought he was definitely a critical component to Golden State, winning Game 2. I thought another thing that I can kind of point to was the fact that Al Horford, Marcus Smart, and Derek White, who combined for 65 points on 65% shooting from three in Game 1, 15 made threes, they all fell back down to earth and had 16 points. And what was it? 2 threes on 7 attempts, 29%. And so, I mean, you look at the difference, 65 to 16 points. I mean, my gosh, Jordan Poole also deserves, a ton of credit. He made 5 threes, 17 points. We could touch on other things, but I thought some of the biggest factors that led to Golden State winning in Game 2 was the presence of a Gary Payton, was the presence and emergence of a Jordan Poole, and was the fact that Boston, guys not named Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown, fell back down to earth.
Same question, Dwayne. I know you've had the Warriors all along from even before ball bounced in the offseason, but what did Golden State do to finally square the series?
Well, Golden State did to Boston what Boston did to Golden State in Game 1. And in Game 1, as Steezy mentioned, Boston, specifically Smart, White, and Horford, was 15 and 23 from 3. I've been saying ever since Game 1 that's not going to happen again, and here we are post Game 2, and that didn't happen again. But Boston outplayed Golden State's brand of basketball better than Golden State did in Game 1, and that got them a 12-point victory in Game 1. In Game 2, Golden State played Boston's game and played it much better than them. They were much better defensively. They forced way more turnovers. And in fact, Game 2 was the second most assists the second most turnovers, that the Celtics have had in this playoff run. They had 19. They had 2 games, they had 18, and they had 1 game, I think it was against the Heat, when they had 24 or something like that. Like, this is, as much as Justin will sit up here and tell you that Golden State is sloppy with the ball, Boston is just as sloppy with the ball and just as prone for turnovers. But these weren't just dead ball turnovers. These are live ball turnovers. And it's one thing to turn the ball over. It's another thing to turn the ball over and it turned into second chance points. And that was really, or not fast break points for the other team. That was really the big difference. Golden State played better. well, everyone in Golden State except for Klay Thompson played better. And they just played better defense. So, yeah, Golden State won because they played better defense. The second best defense in basketball played like the second best defense in basketball, and they got the job done.
And Justin, real quick, I'm sorry, I just wanted to add to Dwayne's point. He talked about how Boston committed so many live ball turnovers. Well, that resulted in 33 points off of turnovers for Golden State in comparison to Boston's 15. And so, and we're going to touch on this in a little bit, but when Golden State's dominating the paint, when Golden State's dominating the turnover battle, and they're scoring that many points off of Boston's self-inflicted mistakes, then you have a recipe for disaster.
So I will try my best not to repeat what y'all said because y'all essentially hit the nail on the head. So I'll try to focus on something else, which was Steph Curry. And if you're a Golden State fan, a lot of them, you clamor for Golden State to get out of this off-ball screening stuff and have Steph Curry play like every other point guard in the league, which is to run, high ball screens and let him operate. Steve Kerr is usually not that guy. Oh, he was though in the third quarter, and essentially it was no longer Steph on the ball, Steph off the ball. No, it was a situation where Steph was on the ball, set that high pick and roll with Draymond or whoever else for that mismatch. For whatever reason, he made Udoka and the Boston Celtics think that this drop coverage is going to work, and Steph Curry made them pay for that. Like we saw that in the third quarter, time and time again. The defender marking the screener was lagging back in the paint, meaning that Steph Curry was coming off of that screens free, like we saw in the first quarter of game one, and time again, Steph Curry made them pay. And not just by that, but the gravity, the attention that Steph Curry demands. He had his fingerprints all over that third quarter. I want to say also, y'all touched on the point that the law firm of Horford, Smart, and White was just not what they were in first quarter. Granted, we all knew that they would fall back to the mean, but I think a part of that was Golden State's shift in defensive philosophy. In game one, I think they tried too much to overload on Jayson Tatum. This time, I think they were prepared to live with one-on-one matchups to close out. Steezy talked about it. Al Horford Al Horford had absolutely no three-point attempts. Like none. Absolutely none. I think Marcus Smart had 3. Derek White had 4. Like they were making sure if Jayson Tatum decides to beat us one-on-one, we're going to live with that. But we're not going to live with the open looks for Al Horford, for Marcus Smart, for Derek White anymore. If they're going to, if Jayson Tatum's going to beat us by himself, then so be it. And I think the additional or the added defensive pressure on those 3 players, kind of showed up. And that led especially to Marcus Smart's turnovers. I think he had 5, and as both of you mentioned, not only were there turnovers, but 15 of the 19 were live ball turnovers, resulting in 33 points. Like, you are not going to beat Golden State turning over the ball, nor are you going to beat Golden State turning over the ball in live ball situations where they can get layups or open jump shots. So, guys, Dwayne, I'll start with you this time. We touched on what Golden State did to win, but what resulted in Boston being also dreadful, especially in the second half of this game?
I think the Boston Celtics took for granted this magical thing called consistency. It appeared as if the Boston Celtics felt that because Jayson Tatum was finally hitting his shots in game 2 that they didn't have to step up. That's kind of what it seemed like. And we can talk about the turnovers, but I'm not really going to harp on that because you should take more care of the ball. But like I said, they've had 4 games this playoff run where they've had at least 18 turnovers in a game. And this is also the second best defense in basketball. So the turnovers aren't what's surprising to me. What's surprising to me is we talked so much about Horford and Smith and White combining for 65 points and being 15 to 23 from 3 in the first game, and Jayson Tatum being 3 of 17 with 13 assists. But then Jayson Tatum started hitting those shots in game 2, and the supporting cast just disappeared. That's not you can't have it both ways. That's not how it works, especially against this basketball team, the Golden State Warriors, that's been on this stage 6 now of the last 8 times that we've been in this position around this time of the year. So what went wrong for Boston was Boston thought that because JT was finally playing like JT, that They didn't have to play basketball, or at least that's what it seemed like. And I don't know why, because when has Jayson Tatum ever had back-to-back? It's been a very long time, if ever, this season anyway, that Jayson Tatum has had back-to-back games where he has shot that poorly. It just doesn't happen. That is just something that just does not happen. Like we talk a lot about how Boston hasn't lost back-to-back games. Well, neither has Golden State. And Golden State, after a loss, averages 14 and a half point. It's a 14 and a half point differential, I believe, which is fourth highest this season. And Boston has the highest at 15 and a half. But like Boston just, they didn't look like they came to play. Like the first half was close. And then, like I said, as I've always said, the Warriors are the best third quarter basketball team in the league. They showed that. And unfortunately for Boston, they let that run get to them, unlike in game one where they was respond. They didn't respond. The supporting the others didn't step up. And so as great as or as solid a performance as Jayson Tatum had in game two, it just wasn't enough.
You feel the same way, Steezy, or is there something else that went wrong for Boston as well?
No, 100%. To add to what Dwayne was talking about, and just to kind of piggyback off what you were saying, it was funny to see Golden State overcommit, right, in game one, because all playoffs long, we didn't see that with Golden State going up against John Morant's of the world, the Nikola Jokic's of the world, the Luka Doncic's of the world. What it was Golden State was, okay, the opposing superstar, they could do their Dougie. They could do their thing. What we're gonna do is we're gonna make sure that no one else is stopping us. We're gonna make sure that the role players, that the second options, the third options, we're gonna make sure that those guys aren't beating us. Because at the end of the day, you could have a supernova performance, a superhuman performance from a Nikola Jokic, from a Luka Doncic, from a John Morant. But if the teammates aren't there to help out, to assist with any of the scoring or with any of the load, it's kind of hard to win basketball games, especially in the playoffs. And so for Golden State to kind of revert back to what they've been doing all postseason long in game two against Jayson Tatum and the Celtics, I think that's a recipe for them to continue to want to use, moving forward. Another thing that I kind of looked at was Marcus Smart. And Justin, you alluded to this, but Marcus Smart not only had 0 made threes, but he had 4 more turnovers than made field goals. So he had 5 turnovers and 1 made field goal. And from your starting point guard, yikes, that's very bad. And so we're talking about a top 3 player on the Celtics. Another top 2 player on the Celtics, Jaylen Brown, had 17 points, but was super inefficient. I mean, 5 for 17, 29% from the field. That's just not going to cut it against a top 2 defense in Golden State. And so especially with the emergence and with the arrival of a Gary Payton, like you're going to have to be a lot more efficient from the field. And I touched on this earlier, but Golden State dominated the paint. I mean, 40-24. You look at Boston. Boston's the bigger team. Boston's the more physical team. Boston has more weapons up front, but Al Horford, Justin, you touched on it, 0 for 0 from 3, 2 points. So he had 2 more points than all of us combined after 26 in game one. And then Robert Williams, and we're going to touch on this later, but he's hobbled and he definitely looked it. And so I think, for Boston, for them to kind of get manhandled, up front when that's supposed to be a presumed advantage, results are going to end up looking more like this, especially if they can't, attack that strength that they have, that they should have. And so a couple of things here, the best players just not taking care of the ball, the best players not being efficient, Golden State dominating the paint, Boston being injured, and then the turnovers. I mean, Dwayne's talked about it, Shannon Sharp's talked about it, everyone's talked about it, the turnovers. And then one more thing I want to touch on, the third quarter. Because if you look at the first quarter, Golden State won it 31-30. Second quarter, Golden State won it 21-20. Fourth quarter, Boston won 24-20. But then the third quarter, and Dwayne alluded to this yet again, but the Golden State Warriors are arguably the best team in basketball in the third quarter. Well, what they do in the third quarter, outscore Boston 35-14. That's that.
This is going to become a boring show because that's going to keep harping. So I'm going to try to find something else to see. You have to start with the turnovers. 19 against offense at Golden State is not going to cut it. And Dwayne is probably tired of hearing me say this. Neil and Marshall for certain as a Boston fan. Marcus Smart is not good enough to have the ball in his hands on a consistent basis. I've said this. I love Marcus Smart, the player. I think he's an underrated shooter. Obviously a very, very elite defender. But he is really their lone playmaker on that starting five, particularly because, as I told Dwayne all the time, my issues with Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown is that they have to get better as passers. Kind of saw that with Jayson Tatum, at least in game one. When you have Marcus Smart starting the ball at that level and then the defense turns up, you mentioned Steezy, Gary Payton is nobody series. Like, you saw the result. The turnover scheme, right? And again, then when you're asking Jayson Tatum to do more than just shooting, and I'm going to get to Jayson Tatum in a minute, he contributed 4 of those 19 turnovers as well. Like, I have a problem with this offense because it gets too ISO heavy. They don't have a traditional playmaker that can connect the dots. And when teams get after them, this is a result. I think Jayson Tatum, for as much as he improved scoring, was hella bad. And I don't want to sound like I'm JJ Redick, but the shot selection in this game was just really bad because leading into this in my preview, I said Boston they're going to target Steph Curry and Jordan Poole for matchups. And there were switches that they did get. They got those switches. But time and time again, and I don't want to put this because his mentor is the late, great Kobe Bryant. But you see him taking difficult shots, whether it be step back or sidestep jumpers or, fadeaways. And I'm like, Jayson Tatum, you are a very big 6'9". Like, use your body, use your strength. Make defenders feel you. And time again, I found that the shot selection was wanting. But I think the primary problem for what went wrong for Boston last night, and I touched on it earlier, Ime Udoka, for whatever reason, right, is living and dying by playing drop coverage on Steph Curry when he has the ball in his hands. And it baffles me. It baffles me because I am concerned if you didn't watch the fourth quarter, Boston got back in the fourth quarter simply by either blitzing Steph Curry or sending the big man to show so Steph Curry's initial defender can recover. He has not done that in the first half of game one, and we saw what happened. He didn't do that in the first quarter of game two. He didn't do that in the third quarter of game two. And every time that Ime Udoka tries drop coverage, every time he tries to have the big man dropping back to protect the paint and force whether Marcus Smart or Curry's primary defender to jump over the screen with no help, Steph Curry continually makes them pay. Guys, I'm not sure if you realize Steph Curry already has 12 threes in this series. 12. And I do not know if continually giving Steph Curry open looks is a recipe to win this series. Now, from listening to JJ Redick, it appears that Boston's concern is on the back end by blitzing Curry that they're going to end up with a 4-on-3. And I guess Ime Udoka in a point has won or kind of got the results he desired because Klay Thompson has been absolutely dreadful in the series. He's shooting like 30% from the field, 27 or something like that from behind the arc. That being said, guys, with Klay Thompson's struggles, Golden State still blew up Boston. Golden State still had a huge run in the first quarter of game one and another huge third quarter run in game one. I do not think the answer is limiting the others. You just can't. I feel like Boston is gift wrapping this NBA Finals MVP for Steph Curry. You just have to change his coverage because, guys, it's clearly not working for Boston. They have lost so many of these quarters in this series. I don't want to see that they're fortunate to be tied, but were it not for the incredible shot making in game four, you can argue that Golden State has so far outplayed Boston in this series. But to get to another critical point of this series so far, last night we saw a situation where Draymond Green and Jaylen Brown got a kind of an entanglement after Draymond Green fouled, I want to say, Jaylen Brown on a three-point shot and then used Jaylen Brown kind of like a footstool, and we know what happened there. The referees didn't give him a technical, but Dwayne, should the referees should they have given Draymond that second tech and lead to his eventual ejection?
So we could have got a new episode of the Draymond Green podcast by the end of the third quarter. I'm so sick of Draymond Green at this point. Draymond Green is a black hole offensively. He can't shoot to save his life. His jump shot is disgusting. Granted, he gets paid millions of dollars to play this sport, right? So who am I to clown a millionaire? Well, I'm Dwayne Marcus, and this is just absurd. I'm so sick of Draymond. I don't know Draymond Green has convinced himself that he can just bully anybody. And I just can't wait for the day that Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown just put him on a billboard in this series. And I hope it's in Boston in a big moment so that he can just shut up. Like forget the tech. Because honestly, if they teed him up, it wouldn't have mattered anyway. Because he didn't score 10 points last night. I know that for sure. I bet every dollar I got he didn't score 10 points last night. Because that's not what he does. He hasn't been productive so far through 2 quarters. So in the ref's mind, it doesn't matter, right? The Warriors are basically every trip down the floor. They play 4-on-5 anyway because no one's threatened with Draymond Green's got the ball in his hands. He drives and then he lays it up and flexes, and then we don't hear the announcers say another thing about Draymond Green for 44 minutes until he either gets a foul, gets a tech, or he's in the ref's face. I'm so sick of Draymond Green. Draymond Green should be ejected if we're being honest. Draymond Green legitimately should have been at some point in his career the first player ever to be ejected from every game he's ever played. Like, because Draymond Green earns about 5 techs a game. He doesn't get all of them, but he does about 3 to 5 technical foul worthy plays a game, and the refs just like kind of let him do his thing. And you see fans complain about it, and I'm just like, why are you complaining? It's not like Draymond Green staying in the game is going to make a difference. It's not like Draymond Green staying in the game is going to be a 20-point swing. It's not. And I hate to harp on the past, but I'm just going to say it. Draymond Green is still living in this fantasy world where if he didn't get suspended in Game 5, they would have won the 2016 NBA Finals. Hey, buddy, you still played Game 6 and Game 7, and you lost both of those games. Like, Draymond Green thinks his impact is a lot bigger than it really is. So should he have gotten the tech? Sure. Would him have getting that tech have made a difference in the outcome? No, because he didn't score any points. He doesn't do anything. Like, Draymond Green gets paid. He gets paid to be a bench player getting starter minutes. Like, he's long past this he's long past his defensive player of the year days. He's long past making any impact, any meaningful impact on a basketball game. Draymond Green, you are lucky to get 8 assists from Draymond Green in the game nowadays. Like that's really how diminishing of an impact Draymond Green has on the game nowadays. Give him 6 techs at the beginning of the game because he's gonna earn all 6 of them throughout the course of it, and just let him do. It's like when you're a teacher and you're like teaching preschoolers, and the little kid in the back just keeps doing this thing, and you just kind of like ignore him because he's gonna do it anyway. Like, Justin, you've got kids. I'm sure at some point your kids have done something. You're like, well, just let him sit in the corner and just like do his thing because he's gonna keep. It's a waste of time. It's generally a waste of time, energy, money, and effort to discipline Draymond Green during basketball games, and it's a waste of my time as a fan to sit at home on my couch and watch refs review every single Draymond Green foul to determine if it's a flagrant 1, a flagrant 2, or a tech. Like, just give him 6 strikes at the beginning of the game, and then when he runs out of them, just tell him to go sit down somewhere and shut up. Like, and not like on the shut up and play thing, but like just sit down and just don't say a word because you're not helping. You're just not. He's not productive at all. He makes me sick. I hate watching Draymond Green play basketball. I really, really do. I really do.
And I thought
I don't even think I answered your question, but I really, really, really hate Draymond Green playing basketball. I so do. From the bottom of my heart, I really do.
I thought you hated Giannis. We found out that you're 6'3".
I hate the hype around Giannis. There's a difference.
We found out that you're 6'3". So would you be the guy to put Draymond on the poster?
I could be. I could.
I don't think Steezy hates Draymond as much as you do. So, Steez, should Dre have gone that technical, or are you comfortable with playing the rest, assessing the situation and playing on?
First I just want to say I think Dwayne, he might have been speaking more from an emotional standpoint, and so I'm not going to call him out on some of the blasphemous and crazy assumptions that he was coming out with, and so okay, I get it. He has some sort of a bias against Draymond Green, but that's okay.
Average is a triple single. When was the last time Draymond Green scored more than 10 points in a basketball game, Steezy? When was the last time?
I couldn't tell you, but I mean, I can almost guarantee you he's had at least one double-digit scoring performance in this playoff run, and there's a lot of games to kind of go through. So I'm hoping he put up at least one double-digit scoring performance. I don't think that's far-fetched.
I'm not saying it's far-fetched. What I'm saying is Draymond Green aside from just being a bully and being the primary ball handler, because this system has been constructed so that Steph doesn't have to be the primary ball handler. Like, you could, like, Draymond Green, you could put anybody in Draymond Green's role in Golden State and it'd still be, and you still get the production on a production level. Look, Draymond Green's basketball IQ is amazing. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that Draymond Green is a scrub, and it's not. I'm not saying that Draymond Green hasn't been a vital part of the 6 of 8. He absolutely has. But on a strictly production level, like what you see in the box, I can do what Draymond Green does in a game. He's sweating 5 minutes into a basketball game, and Draymond Green went 2 for 12 in game 1. I can go 2 for 12 in game 1. Like, Draymond Green the other night had 6 points. I'm pretty sure if he only play all 48 minutes, I can figure out a way to get 6 points in a basketball game, and cause the number of official reviews and potential technical fouls that Draymond Green did in game 2. That's all I'm saying. Specifically in game 2, Draymond Green was a waste of space. He's been a waste of space in game 1 and 2.
We can make this.
It hasn't been
Mark,
for Draymond so far. That's all I'm saying.
We can make this Dwayne Marcus's feelings for Draymond Green for the rest of the podcast, but we have a lot more to get to. So yes, Steezy, would you have given Dre that second technical?
Me personally, no. But that's why I'm not a ref, right? But if we're to follow the letter of the law, then yeah, it deserves a technical. I think what's his name? Van Gundy. It's not Stan, or no, it was Stan Van Gundy.
No,
with him and the rest. Oh, it was Jeff. It wasn't Stan. I'm tripping. But what Jeff was saying, along with the rest of the crew, Mark Jackson, Mike Breen, yeah, according to the letter of the law, that absolutely deserves and warrants a double T. And that would have resulted in Draymond being suspended. But I think when you look at the way that the refs have kind of allowed these two teams to kind of just play. You know, I've noticed a lot more physical play. I don't know if it's because of the finals, but I have noticed that the refs have been more lenient as far as, you know, whether they're going to call this, whether or not they're not going to call this. And so I think because they've been more lenient in the way that they've been calling the games, I think in my estimation and in my eyes, I would let that, if this makes sense, translate over to how they're calling technical fouls, if that makes sense. So because they're calling the games, because they're letting them play, because they're letting them be physical, then you kind of shift over that same sort of logic in how they're calling technical fouls. I understand Draymond Green has gotten away with, you know, plenty of different calls like Dwayne alluded to. I understand Draymond Green has his reputation. I mean, we all go back to the 2016 finals. We all know what happened. And so I think given all that, then yes, and once again, because of the letter of the law, if you look at the letter of the law, then yeah, it definitely warrants a suspension, or excuse me, a second technical foul, which would have led to an ejection. But I just feel like given the magnitude of the situation, and CJ McCollum said this on First Take this morning, but we can't let referees dictate the outcomes of games. I'm not subscribing to the same, you know, notion that Dwayne is, that Draymond Green isn't as impactful as he once was. I still think that he provides a whole bunch of value on the court. And so I think if they were to put that in their hands, this definitely would have changed the outcome of things significantly. I mean, who knows? Maybe Golden State wouldn't have dominated in the third quarter with or without Draymond Green's contributions as far as you know, putting the ball in the hole goes. But I just think that he's still far too valuable and vital of a player. And so that if he was to be ejected, you know, Golden State would definitely feel, you know, his impact. And so that was kind of a long answer, but I guess to answer the question, I'd say me personally, I wouldn't have, but if we're looking at the letter of the law, then it absolutely deserves and warrants a second technical foul.
So let me quickly put up my hand and say Dwayne Marcus and I disagree on a lot of things. And let me say, and he's going to give me some eyeballs now, I feel so strongly about Draymond to say that he is their second most important player. And I've said this, like he really is their second most important player, even more than Klay. Probably he would have been third when KD was on the team, but that's another conversation.
Not to cut you off, I'm on record as saying that Draymond is the most important player on the team because he's their primary ball handler, because he has the best IQ. Doesn't take away from the fact, though, that he can't shoot to save his life on a team that's known for shooting.
Well, I can't argue that. So what I will say is this. For my viewing pleasure, I was happy that the refs didn't give him that technical, and I understand what the crew, being that the announcing crew, was saying, that referees should, you know, take into account the situation, the game, time and place, etc., etc. But as Neil, that is off camera, will tell you, we and I are great friends and we have conversations about this daily. And he has a podcast called the Senate Podcast, which deals with a lot of relationship stuff. So if you ever have the time, please go look at the Senate 246. Extremely great podcast. We talk about accountability and responsibility daily. And the reason I bring this up, right? We want to put the onus of accountability, responsibility for actions on the referees for saying they should know time and place and situation. Shouldn't that be the player's responsibility? If I know I have a technical already, should I not know, not to put myself in the situation where I can possibly get a second technical and cost my team probably a game or even down the road a further suspension? I think too much of the viewing public want to put everything on referees, but the responsibility of knowing a situation as it pertains to your own technical fouls should be with the player. So while a part of me is happy that Draymond Green was not given that second technical and thus ejected, I could not be upset because if he was ejected, it's not the referee's fault. It would have been Draymond. The unfortunate situation is that the referees have been put in a situation where we're all giving them these, these eyes and saying, oh my God, do you not know the situation? You can't eject Draymond. But then ask yourself a separate question. Did the situation merit a double technical? And every one of us would have said yes. Like take the circumstance of Draymond Green having a prior technical out of it. Would we all say that that situation merited a double technical? And everyone, the overwhelming answer would have been yes.
We've seen that get double tech before.
Over and over again. Do I like the fact where the NBA has gone, where that gets a double technical? Probably not. But that's a conversation for another time. We know that merits a double technical. Why then should a referee then have to pause and go over his thoughts as to what the technical situation is so I don't get somebody ejected? That onus, that responsibility, that accountability has to lie with Draymond. And so I say this as a viewer, yeah, I'm happy to get the second technical. But quite frankly, guys, Draymond Green deserved that second technical because you have to know situations. This cannot be the referee's responsibility anymore. Sorry, guys. Speaking of response, go ahead.
Sorry, real quickly, Justin. I just wanted to say, but if it's already established that Draymond Green has gotten away with calls and he knows that he can get away with calls, and maybe in this situation he knew that, okay, I need to be careful because I could garner another technical foul, but it's also been established that referees let me get away with stuff, and so how do I know for sure that they won't let me get away with this?
There you go. And what makes it worse, right, is mild-mannered players now, they feel like if they mouth off just once, they're going to get the technical that Draymond Green doesn't get for mouthing off for 30 to 40 minutes a game. And therein lays a problem. Like, it can't be a situation where you have rules for one guy and different rules apply for others. Like, then you're clearly giving Golden State an advantage because we know what Draymond Green's chippiness, that physicality, that, as Mina Kites would say, the habitual line stepper. We know what that habitual line stepping means for Golden State. That gives them an edge, and an edge that Boston does not have because they feel their players will be teched up quickly because they don't get the same rope that Golden State does. Dwayne, I see you want to hop in here quickly.
Nah, if we're being honest, and Steezy, you can say this is blasphemous, and you can kick me off the stream if you feel so inclined. It's been great. You can follow me on GTP Marcus on everything. Go, a lot of shows coming out this week. It's going to be incredible. Make sure you subscribe on everything. Like, Draymond Green's a former defensive player of the year. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer for sure, right? He has definitely had his mark has been left on the Warriors dynasty, whether you want to call that a dynasty or not. But like, if we're being honest, maybe this is, and maybe I'm in a class of one here. That's fine. I'll die on this hill. If you take Draymond Green off of Golden State Warriors for this series, okay, I am hard-pressed to think that Draymond Green not being on the Warriors means the Warriors' chances of winning a championship greatly diminishes. Like, do they diminish a bit? Sure, because he's the third best player on the team. Or the second best player on the team. Like however you want to chalk it up. He is one of the best players on the team. obviously that presence, that constant just pushing that button on the opposing team that we all kind of, it's weird because we kind of chastise Pat Bev for it, but somehow we've glorified Draymond for it for so long up
I
until
love Pat
recently.
Bev. Just put out
Whatever. I mean, there are a lot of people that do. There are other people, you know what I mean? But like the general public usually chastise Pat Bev for all the things that we once glorified Draymond for doing, and Draymond kind of does it now. And we kind of hate him for it. But like the point is, like, when I say that I don't think Draymond Green makes that is as impactful now as he was then, is Draymond Green's not Draymond Green, in my opinion anyway, is no longer at that defensive player of the year caliber guy, like, which is what was so crucial back then in the Warriors winning championships. Like, you look at the Warriors now, Justin talks a lot about how the Boston Celtics can switch from the 1 to the 5. The Warriors have developed and garnered enough talent with Gary Payton and Andrew Wiggins and Kevon Looney, like all these other even Moses Moody and Jonathan Kuminga, who don't see much of the floor, but like they have enough guys where they can also switch from the 1 through the 5 and still be okay defensively. So like when it comes down to it, yes, Draymond Green obviously has the highest basketball IQ on the team. He is the on-court coach. He does make a difference as far as hustle plays and big moments down the stretch as far as knowing where to place the ball because he has the chemistry with Klay and Steph. And that is a major part of it, right? But as far as Draymond Green's productivity defensively, they have enough talent on the roster where that can be replaced. Like if you can get that same level of defensive activity, efficiency with other, like they're the second best defense in basketball. That's not just because of Draymond. It's because of all the guys they have on the roster, right? Like, and you can find anybody to replace his production offensively. So when I say that Draymond doesn't have that big of an impact anymore as he did back then, is because you look at this team now and how it's constructed. You can take Draymond Green off this lineup, and I'd still pick the Warriors to win the championship because they still have Steph Curry. They still have, although he hasn't been that great, they still have Klay Thompson, who you can typically rely on in the clutch. He hasn't been that so far through 2 games. They still have Steve Kerr, who is a top 15 head coach of all time. Like, they still have enough talent where it would definitely still be a close series, and you would probably give the edge to the Celtics. But Draymond not being on the Warriors, Draymond Green's absence on the Warriors, whether it's a game or however long, doesn't just automatically mean the Boston Celtics would win this series. That's what I meant when I'm saying his impact isn't as great. He is still very impactful. Don't get me wrong. I'm not an idiot. It's just not at the level that it once was, because all the things he does now, you can get that from other places. The only things that he does that you can't replace is his IQ, because you can't teach basketball IQ. That just comes from playing the game a long time and just knowing what's going on, and the chemistry he has with Steph and Klay. And that's major, obviously. But outside of those 2 things, you can get the defensive production from other places, and you can get the assists and the 4 points and 2 of 12 from the field from other places as well. Like that's what I mean when I say he's not as impactful.
I wish I knew that this would be your response to this, because they could have put another show on top of this. But we can't, because we have other topics. All I will say is I'll remind you, there was a particular point in the season from December to January that Golden State had a huge swoon. And I will tell you, or remind you, a particular player was missing. And it wasn't Steph Curry, it wasn't Klay Thompson, it wasn't Jordan Poole. Let's leave it at that. I will go on.
I didn't say. I hate when you do that.
As I said, we'll go on. There's an argument for another time. As we talk about impact, I think the record here, as we have been keeping plus minus for about 20 years, Jayson Tatum in game 2, guys, I think had a record worst minus 38 in the minutes that he played. I never thought that was possible in an NBA Finals game that wasn't lost by 30. Steezy, do you still think, or did you ever think, that Jayson Tatum, currently, prior, subsequent, can be the best player on a team to win a title?
1,000%. I think, just for the record, whether it's minus 38, I got minus 36, but whether it's minus 36, minus 38.
That's my fault.
Okay, it's ghastly, nevertheless. But no, with an emphatic yes, 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 and yes. He's only 24 years old. He's been in the league for 5 years. He's made the playoffs all 5 years. He's been in the Eastern Conference Finals 3 out of 5 years. He has 3 All-Star appearances. He was just recently named an All-NBA first-team member. He's arguably already a top 10 player in the league, and he's only 24 years old. He's a year older than me, a couple years older than Dwayne, and just, maybe 5 to 6 years younger than you. And so, look, he still has
way more than 5'6", buddy.
Oh,
way more than 5'6".
Yeah, I was trying to be nice.
15, 16. I'm not. 15, 16.
I'll take the compliment.
Oh.
Thank you.
Oh, Dwayne and his bluntness. But no, look, this man is only 24 years old. He's a complete player on both ends of the floor. He's a two-way force. He's 24 years old. The sky is the limit. And here he is in his first NBA Finals appearance at the ripe young age of age 24. I don't think there's anything else to discuss. Yes, he can be. Even if it's not this year, he most definitely can be, and he will be. Book it.
Oh, and actually, Dwayne was being kind 17 years, but we won't really get into that. Dwayne Marcus, same question. Can Jayson Tatum lead a team to a title?
Sure. I mean, I hate you. Like, I don't, but I do. Because you're such a, what's the word, Neil? What's what I'm looking for?
Sly Fox?
No, Neil has a ton of words, so let's not ask him.
No, he's not a sly fox. What's the word I'm looking for, Neil? Come on, I'm tagging Neil in here. I'm trying to look for the word. You're such a...
Here he comes.
You there it is. You straddle the fence so much, Justin, because you when 2 years ago, Justin Marvel. Let's just go. Let's take a trip down. 2 years ago, ladies and gentlemen, don't let Justin fool you. Okay, 2 years ago, when I met Justin Marvel, Justin hated stats. Justin was not a stats guy. Justin used to hate when I used to bring up stats. I stopped bringing up stats on this show because I thought that Justin would put me on his blacklist for bringing up stats on this show. Now, here we are 2 years later, and Justin, you can't, check the tape, people, you can't go an entire show without bringing up some cheesy advanced stat to make your argument. And I haven't been here for all the shows, but Neil has. And the people at home have too. Listen, box plus minus is a disgusting stat to me. Because we use it when we want to use it. Like, okay, LeBron James had a game in 2013 when he was minus 32. Yeah, they lost that game like they won the series. So what does it matter? We have to. I hate doing this. Ooh, I hate doing this so much. But we let's just talk about it. Let's just get out. Let's just rip the Band-Aid off.
Get it off.
Jayson Tatum is a disciple of the late great Kobe Bryant, and I love Kobe Bryant. And I'm not taking the Stephen A. Smith route. Okay, I'm not going to say that Kobe would be ashamed, because he wouldn't. Kobe would be very proud of Jayson Tatum at this point in his very young career. What I'm saying, though, is that Kobe Bryant has a lot of very bad box plus minuses in his NBA Finals career. He actually has, before Game 2, the record for the worst box plus minus in an NBA Finals game at minus 35. And he's on this list several times. This isn't the only, Kobe Bryant has a bad box plus minus. So does Jayson Tatum. Devin Booker has a bad plus minus. Kyrie Irving has a bad box plus minus. There are a lot of guys that have bad box plus minuses in games, in series, in their career. Now, the greats usually balances out where it's not over the course of their career. Jayson Tatum can 100% lead a team to an NBA Finals because the guy that he matches his game after has led a team to, he's won 5, but he's led a team to 2 NBA Finals. I have no reason to believe that Jayson Tatum can't do the same. I watched Jayson Tatum match up against Kevin Durant and make Kevin Durant look silly, and I think Kevin Durant's the best player in the world. He swept that team. Then he took on your best player in the world, Justin and Steezy, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and beat him in 7. Then he took your Miami Heat, Steezy, in a series that I will admit should not have gone to 7 games, but it did, and he beat Jimmy Butler. All 3 of those guys play his position. Giannis switches between the 3, the 4, and the 5, but for the most part, he is a forward. So and Jayson Tatum got past all 3 of them. Jayson Tatum can 100% lead a team to a championship. I don't even think it's really that close. I don't think it's really a discussion. There's only two guys in the league today under the age of 25 that I would have 100% confidence in to lead a team to a finals. One of them is in the finals. The other one got beat by the Golden State Warriors in the Western Conference Finals, and that's Luka Doncic. Those are the only two guys in basketball under the age of 25 that I would pick to be the best player on my team to win a championship. Like, Jayson Tatum's that dude. Like, we're looking at Jayson Tatum. He has superstar talent. I don't think he's a superstar yet, but he has superstar talent. He is phenomenal. And here's something that I think that we kind of got lost in the 3 for 17. The 3 for 17 in game one was abysmal. It's terrible, inexcusable. But all the shots that he was taking in game one, he took in game two. The only difference was he hit him in game two. So it wasn't 3 for 17. That's the only difference. Jayson Tatum's shot selection didn't change. Like, I know sometimes we see a bad box or a bad 3 for 17 and we think, oh, that's bad shot selection. No, the exact same shots he took in game one, he took in game two. He was just hitting them in game two. That's the only difference. All it takes for Jayson Tatum as it pertains to can he win a championship is he just needs to be more efficient. Like, he's very inefficient. He doesn't take the best shots, but his shot selection doesn't change. He just needs to hit his shots more. Jayson Tatum can absolutely lead a team to a championship. I think he could lead a team to a championship this season. But if we're talking about another 5 to 10 years from now, I think Jayson Tatum will have 2-3 rings on his hand. In the next, by the time he's 24, by the time he's 34, I think Jayson Tatum will have at least 2 championships. Because I think I know for a fact he can be the best player on our championship winning team. He's the best player on a team right now that is potentially on the precipice of winning a championship. And I feel like if this isn't proof enough that he could be the best player on the championship winning team, then I don't know what is. Because here's the thing. If he loses, so what? There's only 2 people that have ever beaten this team in the finals. That's LeBron James and Kawhi Leonard. And oh, by the way, both of those guys, one of those guys is, in my opinion, the best player ever. Another one of those guys in Kawhi Leonard is top 25, top 20 all time. Like, you got to be an all-time great player to beat an all-time great team. Jayson Tatum's not an all-time great yet, but that doesn't mean he can't lead a team to a championship.
It's crazy I ask this question because, as you correctly said, I mean, he's here in the finals and just 3 wins away. And, Jimmy Butler got to finals, although I don't think Jimmy Butler can be the best player on a title-winning team. But again, I don't think so. But that's another conversation for another time. And I don't underrate Jimmy. I really do like Jimmy. But again, Dwayne, the reason I see that, when you see since the Detroit Pistons won in 2004, the players who have, or the teams that have won titles, when you look at it, like, you can count them, like LeBron, Dirk.
They've all had.
All of them
I just want to ask, when Jimmy was in Philly, right, and we witnessed the luckiest shot in the history of ever, right? Let's say Philly gets past the Raptors, they get past the Bucks. Say the Philadelphia Eagles win the championship that season. Was Jimmy Butler not the best player on that team that season?
But again, they didn't win it. Like, we can say if, but they didn't. So, like,
sure. Well, it took some luck, dude. It took a lot of luck.
Every single championship needs luck. Like, don't ever be fooled. Every championship.
No, and that is true. It does take a lot of luck, but that was an insane. That was a lot of luck in one moment. I see your point, though.
But like with Jimmy, and again, this is not me questioning how good Jimmy is, because I think Jimmy is a top 15 player at worst in the league right now. Like, at worst, probably top 10. But again, a conversation for another time. I don't know with Jayson Tatum, the talent is there, and it sounds weird because just on Dwayne's show this week, I was hedging my bets on whether he's a superstar or not. I didn't go back and forth often, particularly because, and it's weird because he's a good scorer at all 3 levels. He's a hell of a defender at his position. So you'd think I shouldn't question. Again, it's the thing you just brought up, because his mentor is indeed Kobe Bryant. And if there's one player who can take some very, very bad jump shots, it is the late, great Kobe Bryant. And I think that's one thing that he definitely got from Kobe, is his questionable shot selection. That's what we'll call it. So, like, I question him in that scenario with his shot selection. And the point I keep bringing up, his ability to make players around him better. And I liked what I saw from game 1. The scoring wasn't there, so the passing was. But, part of me wants to say, well, that was Golden State overloading, so the passes were easy. And then when you saw the returns to the mean, Golden State stopped overloading on Jayson Tatum, then you saw like, oh well, the passes aren't there because he had 4 turnovers and like 1 assist. I don't know. I would like to think because Marshall believes I don't like Boston, and I really don't. But
like Boston.
I really don't. But I'm rooting for them to win this series, by the way, though. But I am.
Wait, hold on. Wait a second. Let's people at home. Let's talk about just how back and forth on the fence Justin has jumped just in this segment alone. Okay.
Hold on.
So Justin a couple minutes ago said
Golden State to win it 7, but I am rooting for Boston to win this series. I really want Boston to win this.
Justin said a couple minutes ago that he was on my show, and this is true because I was there, so I know. He was basically campaigning for Jayson Tatum to be a superstar.
I was on the fence.
Oh, whatever. You're always on the fence, Justin. That's where you live. Then a couple seconds after that, he said, what'd you say? You said that you're not 100% sure if Jayson Tatum can lead a team to a championship. And then a couple seconds after that,
I'm rooting for Boston.
You say you want the Boston Celtics to win this NBA Finals.
I will explain why. Because I know along the way, and we got into this argument just last week, because if the Golden State Warriors win this title, I'm going to have to hear that Steph Curry is a top 10 player of all time, and I'm not here for that. I'm not here to hear that discussion. So that's really why I want Boston to win this title.
You have Bill Russell in your top 10. If he's in your top 10, Steph Curry should be in your top 10. Steph Curry's better than Bill Russell. I don't want to make you angry and leave again.
I have Steph Curry at 12, but like I don't.
Who's 11?
Pardon me?
Who's 11?
Bill Russell, and then Hakeem at 11, and then Bill Russell at 10.
Oh, Justin, dude.
Wait, so Justin, just to clarify, are you saying that throughout the course of his career, you don't know if that Jayson Tatum can be the number one
I will say right now, I don't have him there. He's only 24, as you said, so there's obviously time and room for improvement. And I'm not saying he can't be there, but as I keep harping, I think I need to see the ability to facilitate a lot better because the ball is going to have to be in his hands. I said it before, Marcus Smart is not good enough to dictate the ball being in his hands. The problem is Marcus Smart is the only natural playmaker on the team, so it has to be in his hands. But
I think we're harping a little bit too much on how old Jayson Tatum is. I think that is a problem that not just plagues Jayson Tatum arguments, but like all arguments. I think it is the issue with Trae Young arguments. I think it's the issue with John Morant arguments, like all of them. Like, there's only one guy in basketball today that is under 25 that stepped foot into the NBA in his prime. That was Luka. That's because he's been playing overseas against pros since he popped out. Like he's been playing professional basketball from the moment he could walk. Like, you look at a guy like Jayson Tatum, he steadily improved. You look at a guy like Ja and even Trae Young to a degree. Like, all these guys are young, and they're not supposed to be the best player on a championship winning team yet. But Jayson Tatum is. Like, Jayson Tatum is the best player on a championship caliber team. Like, this is a team where I think if any other team was matched up against them in the West, whether it was the Nuggets with your MVP Nikola Jokic, whether it was your Phoenix Suns, like whether it was the Grizzlies, like whoever.
The MVP, not mine.
Your MVP. Your MVP. Look, a couple years ago there was a whole "not my president" thing. Look, Jokic is not my MVP. Anyway, whoever it was in this Western Conference field matched up against the Boston Celtics would be the NBA champion, and it would be because Jayson Tatum is the best player on that team. They do still have a shot to be an NBA champion. It would have a lot to do with Jayson Tatum, but any other team steps foot into the finals against this Boston Celtics team, and I don't even think it's close. Like, I think Boston handles any of the other 7 teams in the Western Conference playoff field quite easily in this NBA Finals this year. And I feel like because Jayson Tatum's not old enough yet, or he's not perceived to be old enough yet, we kind of hold his age again. Jayson Tatum is the best player on a championship caliber team right now. Of course he can be the best player on a championship winning team.
I can't dispute or argue that. What I can dispute, though, is what Boston is going to look like going forward if Robert Williams cannot play for the rest of the series. So Steezy will ask you, should the Celtics be concerned if their rim protector and starting center is a no-go for the rest of the series.
Oh, 1000%. I mean, with Robert Williams, not only is he their best rim protector, he's their best interior defender. He's one of their bigs that can kind of outplay Golden State bigs. Just because we all know Kevon Looney and how he likes to wreak havoc on the offensive glass. Well, Robert Williams is kind of the equalizer, for that or to that. And he forces Golden State to kind of play more lineups with a big or two, just to kind of combat with what they do. And so I think with Robert Williams not being 100%, this definitely shifts a little bit more of the favor or the momentum into Golden State's hands. Robert Williams is no slouch. He's no scrub. And we saw, when he went down with that knee injury in the beginning of March, Boston's play, especially defensively, kind of slipped. And so if Al Horford's your only big that you're relying upon, I mean, let's keep in mind, he's 34, 35, 36 years old, and he can't play, the full duration of games. And so that's why you have a Robert Williams. And so if Robert Williams is going to be hobbled, if he's not going to be there, if he's not going to be 100%, I think this definitely shifts the favor into Golden State. And I think that this definitely is going to hurt Boston in more ways than one.
Same question, Dwayne Marcus, my good friend. Should Boston be concerned with the health of Robert Williams?
Yes, because Robert Williams, if he didn't get hurt with that knee, would have been the Defensive Player of the Year. That's all I got. I don't have a long drawn out. This time, I don't have a long drawn out explanation for you. Robert Williams would have been the Defensive Player of the Year if he didn't get injured. The good thing for Boston is, and I'm not sure this has ever happened in the history of basketball, but the Boston Celtics this season, every player on their starting five
Plus one.
So every player on their starting five and someone on the bench, I can't think of who it was, got a vote for Defensive Player of the Year this year. I don't think that's ever happened before in the history of basketball. So, and you've talked my head off for the last 2 weeks about Boston's ability to switch defensively. They should be fine, but of course, you never want to be less than 100% as a team in the finals, especially when you're going to be missing your best interior defender. They should be worried, but they have the versatility where it should not affect them that much. It will, but you would hope that given how brilliant Udoka has been coaching and making adjustments thus far in their playoff run, getting them into the finals, they should be okay. I don't think they will.
I think they have to be concerned. And the reason why Steezy brought up the point, Golden State absolutely dominated them in the paint. And who is the team's lone rim protector? It's Robert Williams. Without Robert Williams, there is not another rim protector on his team. Like, none. I know we saw Al Horford turn back the hands of time against Miami. But in game one against the Warriors, you can't expect that sort of performance from a 35-year-old night in, night out. And the real reason I think that Robert Williams' injury is a true concern, for me personally, if I'm coaching the Celtics team, especially after what I saw in the fourth quarter of game one, when Boston's best lineup is when they downsized and went with one big and Al Horford, is that I don't think that Boston should be playing with two bigs at a time. And I do believe then that Robert Williams is key in either starting or coming off the bench. Because, guys, and I hate to do this to players, Daniel Theis is unplayable in this series. I watched half the game too, right? Daniel Theis is downright unplayable in this series. Both defensively, because he refuses to get up on the screener and get out on the perimeter with Steph Curry. And offensively, Tyson's bringing absolutely nothing. That's one less big in the hole. Grant Williams plays below the rim. I truly believe they're going to need the athleticism, the rim protection, the lob component that Robert Williams brings to this team. Because as Steezy pointed out, this team is just shooting threes or mid-range jumpers. There is nothing in the paint, and that is your lone lob finisher. That is your lone rim protector. Granted, when you look in terms of importance, you probably start Jayson Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, and make your way down the line. I don't like Boston's chances winning the series if Robert Williams is limited going forward.
And Justin, just quickly, we've seen in the past teams that have beaten Golden State. They've done it with physical play. They've done it with play on the interior or in the interior. And so if Boston's missing their biggest interior presence, I think that further complicates things. But because they're not facing that situation, then this could turn out to be a thing that pulls in Golden State's favor.
So, guys, I did agree with you, Steezy, by the way. And it gives me a natural segue going forward. With that in mind, then, and I truly am led to believe there's no such thing as momentum between games from one game to the next. Dwayne, I'll start with you. Who has the advantage going into game 3 and for the rest of the NBA Finals?
For the rest of the finals, it's the Warriors, which they're going to win. Going into game 3, it's the Celtics. I don't think the Celtics are going to win. I have the Warriors winning game 3. But putting back on my stats hat, since apparently we're allowed to talk stats on this show now. The Boston Celtics, just like the Golden State Warriors, have yet to lose back-to-back games this playoff run. That is not something that Boston has done. They haven't lost back-to-back games actually since January, but they also haven't in this postseason run. And as I mentioned earlier, Boston, after a loss, usually blows out their opponents. They have a point differential of 15.5 in the games after a loss. Jayson Tatum usually drops about 30 points after a loss. All the momentum should be in Boston's favor. The one hesitance and the reason why I have the Golden State Warriors winning, even though I think Boston has momentum, is because this will be the first time that Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown and this team plays on this stage at home. This is a team that's already sloppy with the ball. As I mentioned earlier, they already have 4 games this postseason with at least 18 turnovers. I believe they have close to 10 with at least 15 turnovers, if my memory serves me correctly. This is a team that is young and they play very tense at home. Couple that with this being the first home game in Boston in the NBA Finals since 2010. I believe Game 6 of the 2010 Finals, if my memory serves me correctly. There's going to be a lot of pressure on the Boston Celtics. And while statistically they have the momentum because they're unbeaten after a loss, I don't think that the stats and the history of what they've been doing since the turn of the calendar is going to work in their favor. I think they'll probably come out to a fast start. No, they will come out to a sloppy start. I expect them to come out to a sloppy start because they'll be very nervous. They'll probably settle in by quarter 2. But again, it all comes down to quarter 3. Like Justin, I believe momentum exists from game to game in the playoffs, but not when you're playing the Warriors. Because the only quarter that matters when you play the Golden State Warriors is the third quarter. So Boston can be up 10, 15 going in the half. But if Golden State has one of those Golden State third quarters, none of that will matter. And I think that's really what it's going to come down to. I think Boston will be fine. I think they'll have enough time where they can. I think it's they've got today and tomorrow to figure out what they're going to do with their lives heading into game 3. They're going to be putting shots up. They're going to have an alternate another game plan without having the Time Lord. And I think the other thing too is because they played all of the net series pretty much without Rob Williams, they know a game plan already exists without Robert Williams. This isn't a situation where they got to come up with one on the fly because they haven't. They've played a lot of games without him and they've played playoff games without him, so they know what a potential playoff game plan looks like without him. Obviously, this is a different team from the Nets, so things are a little bit different. But by and large, the rotation is going to be the same. They're going to alter a couple things, but they have a playoff game plan without Robert Williams. That works in their advantage, but it's all about the third quarter. So Boston can have all the momentum in the world. If they fall apart in the third quarter like they did in game 2, though, the Warriors are going to win the game. I do have the Warriors winning game 3, though. I do have the Warriors winning game 3.
Same question, Steezy, for you. Who has the advantage going into game 3 in this series?
Man, make it a party of 2. I feel like with Golden State, not only are they the healthier team, but like we talked about, Robert Williams, a key and a critical component to what Boston likes to do, especially defensively, is hobbled. We don't know if he's going to play. Even if he is going to play, we don't know if he's going to be 100%. I mean, with Gary Payton, he's only going to get his legs even more under him. Who knows? Maybe Andre Iguodala plays in a game 3. That's another body. That's yet another wing. And I know in game 1 it was bad, especially in terms of spacing, and he only made 1 3. Defensively, he just wasn't there. But then again, this is another body to kind of throw at, the amount of wings that Boston does have, just because they have so much star power, so much of their attack does come from their, superstar wings. And so Andre Iguodala's yet another body, but I think one of the biggest things that kind of plays into Golden State and as to why they have the momentum moving forward is because they're the healthier team. Boston missing critical pieces. And obviously, like was talked about ad nauseum, Golden State has all the experience in the world. 123 games, or now 125 to Boston's 2 finals games experience. And so I just think that not only is Golden State healthier, they have more experience. They've been in this position before. And if not for that shooting barrage that they had with under 7 minutes to go in the fourth quarter of game 1, Justin, you touched on this, Golden State would probably be up 2-0. And so they've been the better basketball team so far. They're the healthier team so far. And they're the more experienced team. So hence, heading into game 3, they have all the momentum in the world.
So again, I honestly don't believe in momentum between, games in playoff series, especially in finals games. And there is this thing, Boston has yet to lose successive games in these playoffs. And as I think Dwayne alluded to, not since January. That being said, there's another point that Dwayne brought up that he didn't bring up tonight. Boston are only 5-4 at home in this postseason, a game above 500. So I don't think going back in the Garden favors Boston or favors anyone for that matter. It's going to be boring, but I'm going to make it a clean sweep. I think it's Golden State, and not because of them winning game 2. But there's some disturbing trends I saw. Like you mentioned it just now, Steezy. It took a historic, not a good, not a great, a historic fourth quarter performance for them to come from behind to win game 1. They had us go 9-12 from the, I want to see the law firm of Horford, Smart, and White from behind the arc to win game 1. And then we saw them crashing right back down to earth in game 2. And more troubling for me than even Boston needing to have that historic shot making is actually the other end of the ball where I think that they're so damn elite. Ime Udoka seemingly is trying his best to give Steph Curry his first ever finals MVP. I don't know if they're friends, if they have some sort of connection beyond Steve Kerr. I know Steve Kerr and Ime Udoka are Greg Popovich disciples, but for the life of me, outside of that fourth quarter where they finally decide to blitz Steph Curry, Ime Udoka is trying his utmost best to see if playing drop coverage, if having the big drop back to protect the paint against Steph Curry is working. And I want to tell Ime Udoka it is absolutely not working. Steph Curry has 12 threes in this series so far on above 40% shooting. Please, oh please, like those two facts, the mere fact you needed a historic night from those role players that typically don't shoot that well, the defensive performance that you've put against Steph Curry, and the mere fact that Jayson Tatum really has not looked like the Jayson Tatum that we all have come to expect in the series. Y'all mentioned the fact 125 games in the finals compared to just 2 in terms of finals experience between two sides. Everything tells me, like Golden State, like my prediction in 7, like this game 3 is pointing towards Golden State. And Boston is 5-4 at home in this playoffs. And I'm not kidding you, 5-4. I don't know.
And Justin, I'm sorry, I'm always doing this, but this is actually a stat that I wanted to start off with. But to piggyback off what you just said about Boston and their record at home in the playoffs, Boston has lost 3 of their last 5 home playoff games this year. So in the last couple of weeks, 2 against Milwaukee, 2 against Miami. So
I don't know if losing home games, it being a game above 500 at home in the playoffs, is a recipe for success. But Boston Celtics are here, right? Because they also have a record 8 road wins in this postseason so far, and who's to say they don't get another? But guys, as we shift away from the NBA Finals, there's actually other news. And as we try to wrap up this show, We found out the other news. I want to see 8 years he's been in Utah, however long he's been. Head coach of the Utah Jazz, Quin Snyder, is no longer there in Salt Lake City, having opted to resign his position. We've already heard rumblings prior to this that Donovan Mitchell considered leaving or was thinking about leaving, has a very bad relationship with the other max contract guy in Rudy Gobert. With the departure, Steezy, do you honestly think that there is a chance we see Donovan Mitchell asking out of Salt Lake City?
I think if Rudy Gobert is still on the team, he's probably going to want out. Or if it's to the point where their differences are no longer, or no, let me phrase it differently. I think if they're unable to reconcile their differences to the point where it's no longer distracting the team, then maybe there's still, a slight chance that we see both of them, on the floor for the Jazz next season. But I think unless Rudy Gobert is out of there or unless they reconcile their differences, Donovan Mitchell, I think it's inevitable he's going to ask out.
Same question, Dwayne. Do you think Donovan Mitchell is as good as gone, or will he work it out and want to stay in Utah? Your mic is muted.
My bad. The hood is being the hood right now. I live in the hood. Sorry. Yeah, I think Donovan. Hold on. I think Donovan Mitchell should ask out. Donovan Mitchell's not going to win a championship in Utah. No one's won a championship in Utah. That's not a place where you win championships. I don't think he should go to New York. I'm not a subscriber of that because he's definitely not going to win a championship in a New York Knicks uniform. That's for sure. I think Donovan Mitchell should go to Miami. He wants to win a championship. Go win a championship. That's probably his best bet. The East is tougher, but with rumblings, not that it really matters, right? But with rumblings of like Zach LaVine potentially being on his way to Portland or at least out of Chicago, that makes a difference. We don't know what Kyrie Irving is going to do. That makes a difference. If I'm not mistaken, James Harden still hasn't locked himself into Philly yet. And while I think that's on the horizon, James Harden has forced himself out of 2 teams in 3 years. So, like, it's not completely out of the realm of possibility for James Harden to pack his things and go elsewhere. There are a lot of ifs in the Eastern Conference. And I think the only 2 teams that aren't iffy are the Boston Celtics and the Milwaukee Bucks.
And
well, it didn't pain me to say that. I just really wish that wasn't the reality. I firmly believe that the Milwaukee Bucks will be sitting at home this time next year as well, but we can talk about that some other time. Especially if Donovan Mitchell goes to Miami. But if Donovan Mitchell goes to Miami, I think that makes the Heat the second best team in the Eastern Conference. Because the one thing that the Heat have been missing is a consistent offensive scorer, specifically in the playoffs, not named Jimmy Butler. They need that desperately. And while as much as I think that Tyler Hero is fantastic, Tyler Hero is going to have to be a part of that trade package. That's obviously not a significant loss because you're getting Donovan Mitchell. So, like, whatever. But also, like, Donovan Mitchell, I know that Donovan Mitchell will improve this team defensively. That also takes a lot of pressure off of Victor Oladipo because that means Victor Oladipo doesn't necessarily have to be who he was before surgery and before his injuries. That does, however, put a lot more pressure on Bam because Bam is going to have to play better defense more consistently. Like, we know he can play defense, but he's going to have to do that consistently. His excuse, at least this season, was, Tyler Hero was injured and Duncan Robinson wasn't playing up to his contract and Victor Oladipo was out and all this stuff. And so now he kind of had to play offensively, and he didn't do that great of a job at that either, specifically in the Eastern Conference Finals. You bring in a Donovan Mitchell, Bam gets to be Bam and be a potential Defensive Player of the Year candidate like he was and like he has shown that he could be. Jimmy Butler gets to go back to being that natural facilitator that he was in Philly that could also drop 30 if necessary. You might also be able to get rid of Kyle Lowry in that because I don't think Kyle Lowry's worth the extension. Like, it was nice and it was cool, but I feel like the Miami Heat works better if Jimmy Butler's the primary guy on ball. I don't think that the ball not being in Jimmy's hands is a good formula for success. So you bring out Donovan Mitchell, and I don't really think, not I don't think, I know that even though he has been doing it in Utah, Donovan Mitchell doesn't need the ball in his hands to be explosive. Like when he was drafted, they had Ricky Rubio, and he was just as good. If not, you could argue maybe even better as far as being more efficient and being better. He's a solid defensive talent. Like everything just points to Miami Miami being back in this and where they were this season next year if they bring in a Donovan Mitchell. But no, yeah, Donovan Mitchell should want out. Playing with a former 3-time Defensive Player of the Year that can't stop a cold is not good for Donovan Mitchell's health, I don't think. And I love Donovan Mitchell. I think Donovan Mitchell's fantastic, and he deserves to be playing somewhere where he can win a championship. And also, if you have to pick between Salt Lake City and Miami, you pick Miami 30 times out of 10. It's really a no-brainer.
No, the whole thing is, this is not the first time we've heard rumblings about Donovan Mitchell questioning his future in Salt Lake City. We've also heard the rumors that the relationship between him and the other max contract guy in Rudy Gobert is strained at the very best. And the reality of moving Rudy Gobert, considering the time and money remaining on his contract, that's going to take some work, some cap space magic. So the only head coach he's known in the NBA, and what we've also found out, excuse me guys, is that Quin Snyder was part or substantial part of the reason why he signed that 5-year rookie max extension, and now Quin Snyder is gone. I do not see a scenario where Donovan Mitchell doesn't ask to leave Utah. Like, on top of this, the Jazz is not a free agent destination. So you're going to find it hard pressed to move on for the guy that you don't like. His contract is so massive. No one is coming in free agency. The coach you like is no longer there. Like, there is nothing tying Donovan Mitchell to Utah other than his relationship with Dwayne Wade, which I think is kind of not stated enough, because he looks at Dwayne Wade like a mentor, and we know Dwayne Wade has he's part of minority ownership. So maybe Dwayne Wade can convince him to stay, but who is to say? Because we saw Dwayne Wade had these same issues in Miami, and Dwayne Wade ultimately left Miami for a couple of years before mending fences. Who is to say Dwayne Wade ultimately doesn't tell him as a player talking to another player, you need to do what's best for you, and that likely is to leave Utah. Again, like, how easy will it be to move on from Rudy Gobert? It's not a free agent destination, and now the head coach that led you to sign your 5-year rookie max extension is gone. There's no reason for him to be there, guys. So I think that's 3 for 3. I do not see a situation where Donovan Mitchell asks to remain in Utah. Guys, I want to thank y'all as usual for making this episode a great one, especially learning that the 6'3" Dwayne Marcus intends to dunk all over Draymond Green. Like, I need footage of that. Like, I think the internet would be a better place.
That is not entirely accurate. That's not entirely accurate.
He wants to go, and the world would be a better place if it happens.
I would like to. Yeah, that'd be cool.
So, Dwayne Marcus, please plug yourself. Tell the kind folks what you have coming up next, because you have a lot of that, and how to find what you have coming up next.
With what I've got coming up next, and I'm the one that's doing it. Let's see if I can run all down the list. So, Hell in a Cell was this past Sunday. So there was a show about that on Saturday with my guy Salva Sports in the Big Apple. My Game 1 recap was with this guy here, Justin Marvel. That was also on Sunday, so check that out as well. Dropped a Bears episode today, paying me to record it, but my guy Jaylen Hunter came on the show to talk about the Bears. That dropped earlier today at 2 o'clock. Check that out. No show tomorrow, but before Game 1 on Wednesday, there will be a Game 2 preview. Falcons show on Thursday. Game 3 preview on Friday. Broncos show with Steezy is going to drop on Saturday. Game 4 preview on Sunday, and then next Monday we're running down the list again with the Seahawks, the Commanders, and the Vikings, with NBA Finals game previews dropping as they should. So yeah, I really don't know what else to say other than if you don't want to know anything about basketball or football, then just don't follow me. I feel like that's kind of where we're at this point. I've recorded more episodes in the last 2 weeks, I think, than I've recorded at any given stretch of time since I've been doing this. I feel like Steezy, because like it's so hard to get Steezy on the show now because he's always doing something. Now it's hard for me to even get my own shows done because I'm always doing something. I appreciate Justin for the invite as always, even though he is a major pain in my butt. And I finally understand how Neil has felt after all these years. I don't know how he's put up with you. And Marsha, too. I hope Marsha's doing good. But, yeah, it's always a pleasure to have – oh, and Justin will be on this one talk about the Broncos, too. Yeah, I forgot about that. I'm not done with Justin yet. I got to see his face a couple more times this week. But in all seriousness, I appreciate the invite. I enjoy coming on the show. And September 1st is going to be a great day in history, and you need to make sure that you are tapped in for September 1st, because if you're not, then you're going to miss it. And if you miss it, then you suck.
And what we're going to do, August the 30th, the news that he wants to drop, we're going to break it here so that September 1st is pointless. But no, we won't do that. Steezy, it has been way too long. Tell the kind folks how to follow you and what you have coming up.
Man, as always, I just want to thank you, Justin. Thank you, Neil, and to Marsha out there. I still haven't had the opportunity to work with you, so let's hopefully try to change that sometime soon in the near future, or maybe you could just hop on my show, because who knows, maybe I'll never hop on a show with you on this show, but that's neither here nor there. I just want to say, as always, and again, can't say this enough, but thank you, Justin, thank you, Neil, and Dwayne, my brother. I'm sorry, bro, but that's why I'm hopping on that Broncos show, and hopefully many more to come. I do need to hop on an NBA Finals preview with you, multiple of them, actually, so let's try to hash that out. But yeah, yo, if you guys are tuned in, please, at This Just In, at Go Time Podcast with Marcus. Please be sure to hit that subscribe, follow all socials, and be sure to tune in every single Monday at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time for the latest in sports on This Just In. And then last but not least, you can find me at Steezy A. Smith, SteezyASmith. I will be dropping more Seahawks draft profiles as the week comes along. And hopefully, I'll be scheduling the NBA Finals Roundtable show, hopefully with these two and more. Before the end of the week, I'll try to hash that out, try to schedule that out for you guys. But as always, thank you, and love doing this with you guys.
As I said, at Steezy A. Smith, at GTP Marcus, all socials, you can find them there. And if you don't find them, you're hell well not looking. I don't even think I have to plug myself because Steezy does that so well. But hashtag This Just In. Please put in the hashtag, none of us want Max Kellerman's awful take. So hashtag This Just In. Every Monday night we are here on YouTube at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and on Twitter daily when we're not posting long form content right here. So from Dwayne Marcus for Steezy A. Smith, otherwise known as Calvin Domingo, to his family, I am Justin Marvel of the hashtag This Just In, signing out. There's no basketball to watch, so please go and watch some hockey instead. Good night, everyone.
I don't have a mark on my face, and I upset Sonny Liston, and I just turned 22 years old. I must be the greatest. I told the world, I talk to God every day. The God's with the king, no matter you're just the same. I shook up the world. I shook up the world. I shook up the world. I shook up the world.
I said, can I be a legend? Search your soul and answer me this question. Do you think I have what it takes to be great, but still be humble and learn?